Well, here we are back at English 210, Listening Comprehension. And today we have a milestone in this course. A milestone is something which marks your progress, and an important mark it is because we begin our last lecture, lecture number 6. Appropriately, the subject of this lecture is cultures of the world. I say appropriately because it's an international topic, and it's nice for us to finish on such a broad and such an encompassing topic. So let's get right to work here in our first part of the unit, and you'll see in front of the camera here our first page, Cultures of the World. We begin with a conversation. The conversation is called Learning New Customs. Customs will be an important vocabulary for us in this unit. Customs are what we do as a result of being part of a particular culture. Different cultures have different customs. In the lecture as well, we move on to coming-of-age ceremony. A ceremony is a particular action that you do to mark a special occasion in cultures. Different cultures have different ceremonies, and we'll have a lecture where we hear about 3 different cultures and the ceremonies that they use to mark adulthood. We'll come to that later. And then we'll have some contexts about cultural differences. And finally, we have as a real-world task the dining customs. Dining is different in one country to another. I'm sure you know dining is a nice word for eating. If you eat in your car, that is not dining. Dining implies in a formal situation with a table and with people with you, and so formal dining. Dining in a restaurant or dining in your home, but it's a formal affair. All right, let's get down to work then. That was introducing the lecture, and we move to the next page, and here we see an example of representatives of a particular culture. Now, this culture will be involved in our lecture that we have, and we call this the Native American culture. It used to be called American Indian, but the people who were being called American Indians did not find it appropriate. They have nothing to do with India, and so the proper term now is Native American culture. And you see they are distinctive with their feathered headdresses and their leather clothing, and certainly you can recognize them as being Native Americans. Let's look at our questions connecting to the topic. Look at the photo. What do you know about this culture? Some of you may know about it. There have been some important movies that have to do with Native American culture. Maybe you've seen how they hunt or how they took care of their horses, things of this sort. I can't really know, but it's not a strange culture for most people. The next question, what kinds of difficulties can a person have when visiting or moving to a place with a different culture? Now, it could be that you've had that experience. It can be difficult. You have a different language, maybe you have different food, people speak to you differently in a different way, or maybe you have to sit in a different way. So these could be difficulties if you move to a different culture. In today's world, this happens to many of us. We go and spend time in other cultures. Number 3, what places and cultures are you interested in and why? Well, I'd like to know that, but I can only guess. But most people are interested in other cultures. Some of you may be interested in European culture, Asian culture. It's a good guess that since you are studying English, that you might have some interest in British or American culture. Whatever it may be, we will be talking about some aspects of culture in our discussion today. We move on to the next page. The next page we see the circumstances for our conversation that we'll be practicing. And we see Salma, and she's talking on her cell phone. Now that's going to be an important part of our conversation because using a cell phone is different in different cultures. In some cultures it might be very impolite to use it while you're at the table or while you're visiting with friends, whereas other cultures maybe not. We're going to hear about that difference in culture. So it asks us to discuss the situation in the photo. Well, what we're to understand here is that these girls are talking with each other, and then Salma starts talking on her mobile phone, or cell phone, which is the term more used in the United States. Why shouldn't Salma use her cell phone? Well, in the United States, it's not the custom to use the cell phone when you're talking to other people. You would leave and go somewhere else. So this is a matter, again, of customs. Number two, do you know the expression, when in Rome, do as the Romans do? Well, this is an expression. It's a proverb in English. And it means that when you go to a particular country, you adapt to their customs. If you go to a country where it's usual to cover your head, probably you will do the same so you don't look strange. If people take off their shoes before going in the house, you probably will do the same. Usually you have to adapt to the culture that you're visiting. Number three, how do you feel when you travel to a new place, meet new people, and experience new customs? Circle the words in the box that describe how you feel. Explain or give examples of times that you have had these feelings. Well, I can't know which ones you're circling, but let's go through these at least to talk about them. Now, if you went maybe to Disney World, or you went to some exciting fair somewhere, you might be excited, a lot of activity. This goes along with the one just below it. You might feel energetic, especially if you've had a good meal or something good to eat. It might make you energetic. Now, careful, if you went to some place like a cave or some area of the ocean, you might have to be careful. Homesick is a nice term in English, and many of us do get homesick, especially when we're young and we go away from home for the first time. We remember our family and remember everyone, and we say we feel homesick. This does not mean that you actually physically feel sick, but you feel very sad because your family is not with you. Some of you may be in that circumstance, but some of you may have that in the future. Afraid, well, I suppose there are some times when you might go to a country and you might feel afraid if you went to the wrong area, or if you went up into the mountains where it's very high. Worried, well, you might be also worried if you saw some strange characters. You're wondering what they're doing. Shy, if you meet people and they want to talk to you and you can't converse with them, you might feel shy. You might withdraw and feel that you are in a strange situation. Interested, I would hope. All cultures should be interesting, and we should feel interested. We want to know more. Nervous, very similar to afraid. You don't know what to do, so you feel nervous. Curious, wanting to know new things, a very good aspect if you visit new cultures. So all of these are adjectives that might apply to you if you went to a new culture. All right, let's begin by previewing vocabulary for this section of our unit. We were going to have a conversation coming, and here we have some vocabulary. Previewing vocabulary. Listen to the underlined words. You will hear these words in the conversation, then use the content to guess their meanings. Write your guesses in the spaces. Now, I've helped you here by putting my own idea about it. My first impression of my new boss was not good. He seemed strict and unfriendly when I first met him, but now I like him. I put down here as a meaning, the impression is what you immediately feel about something. So what you first feel is your first impression. Impression means it puts something on you, and so you have a first impression. We say in English that a first impression is very important. So if you're going to a new school or a new university, probably the first day you want to look good, you want to be in good condition, because that will be the first impression that you give. Number two, I don't like getting up at 6 a.m., but I am getting used to it now because I've been doing it every day for 3 years. Used to means something we find as normal, not strange. If you do something a number of times, you will get used to it. Perhaps you're getting used to having courses over the computer. It maybe was something new for you not long ago, but now you are used to it. Number 3, Mr. and Mrs. Haley, I believe it is, like to travel to exotic places. They like unusual and interesting vacation. Exotic, very strange, something that is not normal. Now, this is, of course, depends on your perspective. What is exotic to one person isn't to another. If you're from India and you go to Nepal, maybe that's not very exotic, but for someone from Europe, Nepal is a very exotic country, very different. For example, if somebody wanted to come, let's say, to Saudi Arabia or to Qatar or Bahrain and was from, let's say, Germany or Britain, it might seem rather exotic. But if you're from Saudi Arabia and you go to Qatar, it's not very exotic. Exotic, and I put here as a meaning, out of the ordinary, very different. Another expression we need, a very American but now also British expression, a doggy bag. If you don't finish your food in an American restaurant, you can take the remaining food home in a doggy bag. Now you may be surprised that it's called a doggy bag. It probably was meant as a joke. People would say, no, it's not for me, it's for my dog. But actually it's for the people. So it's probably a funny expression, a doggy bag. A bag of leftovers from a restaurant meal. So you want to take them home, they'll give you a bag and you can take them home. The doggy bag may not be a bag, it might be a box, but it's still called a doggy bag. Number 5, when I arrived in the U.S., I was amazed by the number of large cars on the road. There were so many. We have only small cars where I'm from. Well, amazed is surprising. Huh? So if you're amazed, you're very surprised. It's stronger than surprised. Huh? So something strange happens, you will be amazed. Number 6, our teacher has not given us a lot of homework so far, but maybe she'll give us more next week. So far means up to the present, up to now. And finally, number 7, when we finish dinner, we save the leftovers in the refrigerator. Leftovers are what you don't eat. Now, of course, leftovers can be used, for example, if you're doing sewing, you have cloth left, but usually leftovers refers to food. Now you're going to hear the conversation, and what I'd like you to do is to listen for the answer to these questions, listening for main ideas. Yolanda and her friend Salma, who is visiting from Lebanon, are having lunch. Kenji is also having lunch at the restaurant. Close your book as you listen to the conversation. Listen for the answers to these questions. So please listen, and then see if you can answer these questions. Remember, it's Kenji, remember, from Japan, Salma, a new figure from Lebanon, and we also have Yolanda, an American figure. Kenji. So, Salma, is this your first trip to the United States? Salma. Yes, it is. Kenji. And what's your impression so far? Salma. Well, the people are really friendly and the city is beautiful, but the food, well, it's not so good. Kenji. Oh yeah, that's what I thought too when I first got here, but I'm used to American food now. I actually love hot dogs and French fries. Yolanda. So last night I took Salma to a Mexican restaurant. I wanted her to try something exotic. Kenji. Did you like it? Salma. Yeah, the food was pretty good, but it was too much. I couldn't finish it all. Yolanda. Salma was amazed when I took the leftovers home in a doggy bag. Kenji. Yeah, that's funny, isn't it? They call it a doggy bag, but it's for people. Anyway, what else surprised you? Salma. That the restaurant was so cold. We don't use air conditioning so much in my country. Oh, and the water had ice in it, too. I had to put on my sweater. I was so cold. Salma. Excuse me, hello? Oh, hi, Eduardo. Waitress. Excuse me, miss, but we don't allow cell phones in the restaurant. Salma, oh, sorry, I didn't know. Eduardo, I'll have to call you back. That's strange for me. In Lebanon, we use phones everywhere. I mean, we try to talk quietly in a place like this, but, Kenji, same in Japan. This kind of rule is getting more popular, though. Yolanda, I'm sorry, Salma. Salma, no, it's okay. When in Rome, do as the Romans do. All right. From listening to that, what is Salma's impression of the United States? Well, there were different things you heard. I hope you heard some positive things. She finds people are friendly. The food, not so good. That's a problem. She also has a problem with cold at the restaurant. Remember, it was too cold, too much air conditioning, too much ice. So she has some good impressions and some bad ones. She also had an experience at the restaurant with the cell phone, and so that would be another part of her impression of the United States. What surprised Salma in the restaurant? Well, I think the main thing was that she couldn't use her cell phone, but also the air conditioning and the ice, these were different. So those would be aspects of customs. Now let's turn to the next page where we continue talking about the conversation. As I've told you before, those are called extensive questions, and we ask them a lot when we have listening passages. They're to see if you understood in general what was happening. However, we also have intensive questions, as you see here, listening for details. Listen again. Well, we won't. See if you remember. Salma doesn't like hot dogs because they don't taste good. Now, we heard that she doesn't like American food, and so I think that would be generally true. That would be generally true because the hot dogs are an American food. Yes, well, I think there was a little interruption. If you noticed it, I hope it didn't bother you. We were on number 1 about Salma not liking hot dogs, and we're going to say that's true because you remember she said the food is not so good, and hot dogs are a typical American food. 2, Kenji likes American food. Yes, we would say that's true because he said, now I'm used to it, and he likes it now. But as with Salma, he didn't like it at the beginning. He has become used to it. Number 3, at the Mexican restaurant, Yolanda was surprised when Salma asked for a doggy bag. No, not true. Salma was surprised. Salma is the visitor from Lebanon, so Salma is the surprised person, not Yolanda. Yolanda is American. For her, a doggy bag is a normal thing. Remember, customs of your own country are normal. For other people, they may seem strange. Number 4, in Salma's country, using cell phones is common everywhere. Yes, and that's why she used it in the restaurant and was quite surprised to be told that it was not allowed. She said, back in Lebanon, they use it everywhere. And finally, Salma says, when in Rome, do as the Romans do, to mean that she will start eating American food. Well, maybe eventually, but after time. So do, and of course not right now. She has to get used to it, but perhaps over time. Now you heard the lecture, or the conversation actually, but it's our passage. And here I have filled in missing words that we had. So Salma, is this your first trip to the United States? F-I-R-S-T. Please remember, it would not be considered correct to put number 1, and then an S-T. Of course, you know in your examinations you'll be choosing the correct form, so, but still, so you know in future if you have to write things. Impression, what's your impression so far? One of our vocabulary words. The people are really friendly and the city is beautiful, but the food, well, it's not so good. Food. Again, first, oh yeah, that's what I thought too when I first got here. But I'm used to. Now please notice, we don't hear the D. because we have what's called blending or elision, because we have a d and a t. What you hear is used to, but of course we know the construction is used plus to. Notice how they elide, used to, just like would have to, have to. Okay, so notice that. I actually love hot dogs, love, L-O-V-E. So last night I took Salma to a Mexican restaurant, capital M, because it's a country, adjective of a country. I wanted her to try something exotic, one of our vocabulary words. Did you like it? Yeah, the food was pretty good. We had this word before, pretty, a qualifier meaning so-so, somewhat, not very much, not very little. It was pretty nice, pretty good, pretty hot. Okay, so pretty good, but it was too much. Notice T-O-O, that's a grammar point, indicating a great amount of something, too hot, too soft. Here, too much, I couldn't finish it. Notice too much means she couldn't do it. It's a negative. Let's continue with the remainder of this page. All right. Now we have Salma was amazed, one of our vocabulary, very surprised when I took the leftovers home in a doggy bag. Kenji, yeah, that's funny, isn't it? Tag question. They call it a doggy bag, but it's for people. Anyway, what else surprised? Else, E-L-S-E, what other things surprised you? Let's go now to the remainder of the little bit remaining of the conversation here. You can see that the restaurant was so cold. We don't use air conditioning much in my country. Oh, and the water had ice in it, and I had to put on my sweater. Now notice sweater, S-W-E-A-T. We have many words where E-A is a short vowel, as in dead, head, here, sweat. Sweat is when you get very hot, and of course a sweater is a piece of clothing which keeps you warm, so it makes you sweat. So a sweater, please notice these. They are vocabulary words for you. Now, as you know, in every unit we have these reductions, and they will be part of your testing. Those of you who have started to do your homework will have found that you had some reduction items. And this is how it works. Comparing reduced and unreduced pronunciation. The following sentences come from the conversation. Listen for the difference between unreduced and reduced pronunciation. Repeat both forms after the speaker. That's me. So repeat. Is this your first trip to the United? This year? This year. Now, in full form, the unreduced is this year first, is this year, but is this your first trip? Number two, the reduced pronunciation. What's your impression? So what's your, meaning what's your, reduced. I want her to try some, I want her to try some, I want her to try. Again, you should be able to interpret these. So if I give you a sentence, I want her to, and I ask, what is her to? You'd put her to. This is what you have to do. Hope you found this interesting in your homework. You'll be doing it also on your final exam. Okay? So now we continue with our conversation here, listening for reductions. Here we have Anita and Brenda have just finished eating lunch together. Listen to their conversation, repeat each sentence during the pause, then write the unreduced forms of the missing words in the blanks. Anita, well, it's time to get back to the office. I'll see you soon, Brenda. Brenda, okay, see you. Wait, Anita, is this your cell phone? Is this your cell? This year? Means is this year, elided, this year. What happens is you have this, and of course you are anticipating the y, and so it becomes this year. Is this your cell phone? Let's continue. Oh my goodness, yes, thanks. By the way, I almost forgot my parents are coming for a visit next week. Repeat, are coming for a visit next week. We don't say are coming for a visit. For a visit, that for is for. So if you were writing this down or choosing the correct, you would have F-O-R, for a visit. The next reduced item. Brenda, really, I love to meet him. I love to meet him. Repeat, I love to meet him. To meet him. Of course, to meet him represents to meet them. So if we're speaking very formally, we say to meet them, but in ordinary speech, very nice to meet him. To meet him. Anita, well, do you want to have lunch with us on Saturday? Sorry, I couldn't see what that was. I'll repeat that. Well, do you want to have lunch? Do you want to have? Well, do you want to have is do you want to have. Huh? So again, you should be able to supply the full form from some reduced, from such reduced expressions. Of course, I will give you the sentence. For example, well, do you want to have lunch with us? And then I say, do you wanna? Do you wanna means what? Do you want to? Brenda, Saturday. I promised my roommate I would go shopping with her that day. I would go shopping with her. With her is with her that day. Could we get together for coffee later in the afternoon? Could we get together for coffee? For coffee? For coffee? Anita, I don't know. They might be busy. But I'll ask. I don't know. Dunno is don't know, huh? All right, this is for you to become aware of spoken English where we have reduced forms and to be able to identify them. That was reductions. And now the last thing we have to do in this lecture today is looking at the vocabulary from our lecture. Using vocabulary, discuss the following questions with a partner, that's me. Use the underlined vocabulary in your answers. Number one, do you remember the first time you visited a foreign country? What was your first impression of it? Well, that would vary, huh? If you're coming from Saudi Arabia to England, your first impression might be of the green, all the green trees. It might be the impression of a lot of people traveling very quickly around London. Different impressions depending on where you're going. I can assure you, someone coming from Europe to Saudi Arabia, their first impression is the desert, huh? All of this expanse of area without trees and without shrubs. Number two, has anything changed in your life in the past year? For example, did you start a new job? Did you move to a new place? Are you used to the new situation? When we undertake new things, we get used to them. Now, I will tell you a secret. Before I recorded lectures like this, it seemed strange, but now I have got used to it. It does not seem strange addressing you over a television screen or over a computer screen. It once did. We get used to things. One of the wonderful things about us human beings is that we get used to things. Number three, what is the most exotic place or food that you have experienced in your life? Well, I wish I could know from you, and since I can't hear from you, I suppose I have to tell you what the most exotic place was that I ever visited. And I suppose it would be Nepal in the Himalayas. It was a very exotic place. Exotic food, probably some Chinese food I've had is the most exotic. Exotic, very strange. Number four, what would happen if an American asked for a doggy bag in your country? Meaning here in Saudi Arabia, I think at a good restaurant, people might be rather surprised. I don't think it would be a good move to do that. I think it would be looked down upon. Looks like you're very poor or something. So I think it's not a custom that will be very popular here. Number five, how many years of education have you completed so far? Well, I hate to tell you how many I have completed so far, but you have probably, if you are beginning university, you have probably completed about 12 or 13 years in elementary and intermediate and secondary school so far. Number six, what amazes you about the United States or another country you have visited? Finish this sentence. I am amazed that. Again, I can't speak for you, but I can tell you many people I've spoken to have gone to Japan. They said that they were amazed at the transportation system there. People coming to Saudi Arabia are amazed at the high temperatures that we experience here. We can all be amazed at different things. And finally, number 7, some people hate to eat leftovers. How about you? Well, I guess nobody likes to eat leftovers. It's a question of how you were brought up, whether you should use up everything that you have cooked or not. So I think it's a matter of habit, isn't it? And the final thing is talk it over, discussing behavior. In this section, you learn the expression, when in Rome, do as the Romans do. But is this always a good rule to follow? Work in small groups, discuss the following questions. Have you ever been in a situation where everyone was behaving in a way that you didn't like? How did you feel? What did you do? Well, again, I guess I have to tell you, the situation I can think of was at being at a certain foreign airport and waiting for an airplane, and suddenly they announced that the plane was there and everybody rushed. It was a terrible crush. Now the question, what did you do? Well, of course I joined in because I want to get on the plane as well. I think that was about the worst experience I've had. Number 2, in what situations might it be impossible for you to do as the Romans do? Brainstorm a list of situations. Well, if it goes against your traditions, if it goes against your rules, for example, a kind of food that you eat, of course, then you can't always do as the Romans do. Well, I guess that is the end of the first part of Unit 6, number 1. So we're nearing the final unit. See you soon. Thank you.